Hi, everyone. It's Stephanie from ADHD Unlocked. Unfortunately, Michelle won't be joining us today, but today we're going to talk about how to navigate parenting children with ADHD when you have ADHD, which is really no mean feat. It's difficult enough trying to parent children with ADHD, but when you add the added challenge of having to basically manage your own ADHD in the face of some very challenging behaviors sometimes of your children with ADHD, it basically takes parenting to a whole new other level. And it can be extremely, extremely challenging. And so what I want to do today is to kind of help equip you. If you're a parent, maybe you suspect you might have ADHD, maybe you suspect that your child might have ADHD. But I'd like to give you a little bit more understanding about what ADHD is, what it looks like, how it's going to affect your parenting. So there's challenges that we discussed, and hopefully we will basically learn some strategies, some new ways of parenting that hopefully will help you be able to parent your children with ADHD in a bit more of a harmonious environment, because it can be toxic. And I know that firsthand. So very happy during October Awareness Month to be able to share with you. So hopefully we can raise ADHD awareness, not just obviously more widely, but within the family. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen now. We have about 45 minutes. If there's any questions at the end that I don't get to, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be holding actually a special Q&A for parents in our ADHD Unlocked membership group. And I'll discuss the ADHD Unlocked membership group in a bit more detail at the end. But if you join, I've got a special offer. It's amazing value. If you join, you can get access to those to that Q&A, special Q&A. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's get down to business. Okay, starting the presentation. So parenting with ADHD. So just a little bit about my background. So I'm a certified ADHD coach. I'm the founder of the ADHD Advocate, and I've got ICF designation. That's the International Coaching Federation. I trained with the ADD Coach Academy in America, and a fantastic training academy accredited with the ICF. I'm also co-founder of ADHD Unlocked. So I founded ADHD Unlocked with Michelle Beckett, and I'm trustee of ADHD Action. Also, just for some information as well, I run the London ADHD Support Group, the ADHD Coaches UK group, which are all the ADCA UK certified coaches. And I was also a primary school governor for special educational needs. And I do advise, I provide legal guidance to families around the special educational needs and disabilities legal framework, because God knows our children with ADHD need all the support they can get in education. So yeah, I kind of like to, and I'll have to probably host another webinar just to educate about the legal side of things. But yeah, we definitely have to advocate for our children, unfortunately, particularly in the current environment. Okay, so in addition to coaching many parents with ADHD, I have got personal experience of this. So I've walked in your shoes. So I'm a parent of children with ADHD. So that's my two youngest ones. My eldest daughter, she's the ADHD Advocate singer, and I don't actually have a photo of her up here, which I'm going to have to do something about. Yeah, so they're my two younger girls. I've got three girls. They've basically all got ADHD. Now, what you'll probably know, I'm not sure who knows what in terms of the ADHD here, but no two people, no two kids with ADHD are the same. And ADHD often doesn't stand alone. So we have a lot of co-occurring conditions. So for example, my eldest daughter, she's got the ADHD, she's got dyslexia, a bit of autism, and she has sensory integration issues, which commonly do appear with both ADHD and ASD, or ASC as they call it now, rather than disorder, condition, which is very much what we advocate at ADHD Unlocked and at the ADHD Advocate, that ADHD is really not so much a disorder, it's a condition. It's a unique brain wiring like autism. So we can talk about that in a little bit more detail, because it's really important If anything, I just want you guys to walk away with understanding ADHD better, being able to perhaps pick up on ADHD traits within yourself and be open to getting assessed for ADHD and getting the support that you need. Because I know firsthand what it's like to live with ADHD as a parent with ADHD and not be diagnosed and not be getting the help that I needed. In a family where you might be married to an ADHDer and have children with ADHD and parents with ADHD, possibly, it can be a really toxic environment when you don't know what you're dealing with. Often, as so often happens with ADHD, we put down any kind of difficulties we have with people as character flaws. So that applies to ourselves. We often will say that we're lazy, or if we don't know our children have ADHD, we accuse them of being lazy, only thinking about themselves, narcissists. Hopefully you parents aren't saying that about your children, but it's really, I can't kind of express this enough here. It is so important to get educated, to understand ADHD and to name it, to tame it. And it's not that, we're all about labeling people, because we all know that we are so much more than our brain wiring. We've got our own personality, obviously the way we've been brought up, so much goes into who we are spiritually, obviously a whole nother level. But ADHD definitely has very common traits. Okay. I've coached quite a few ADHDers now. And, if I didn't believe in ADHD, I can tell you now that unless there's a huge joke on me, ADHD is very, very real. And the same common challenges crop up with each person. So, and these are challenges that, we need to be aware of, and we need to be looking at them through the right lens, because, when you don't know you've got ADHD or anyone in your family has ADHD, you'll probably be accusing them of, those character flaws, and maybe even, just being awful people. And this will obviously have massive implications for the people's self-esteem, but obviously all the relationships, the marriage, your relationship with your children. So yeah, you've got to name it to tame it, right? You've got to. You can't deal with it unless you know what you're dealing with. So I happen to be powered by ADHD. So I'm definitely one of in my family, a lot of ADHDers. So I live and breathe it. And yeah, it's not easy. But at the same time, when we talk about these challenges, I want you guys to remember that ADHD can be a superpower as well, right? So it's like the two sides of the same coin, okay? So it's great. It comes with great strengths and great weaknesses. And I'll teach you about how to be able to harness those strengths and mitigate against the weaknesses. But it does take some intentional action and definitely support. So when you know better, you do better. So what I'm going to focus on here, firstly, yes, we're going to get ADHD educated, right? And then hopefully with education, with knowledge of ADHD, you may realize perhaps you've got ADHD, your children might, your spouse might. So then comes perhaps being open to assessment and getting the treatment that you need. So assessment, it's really important that you get assessed by someone that understands ADHD and has experience assessing people with ADHD. Unfortunately, there are many, many GPs, psychiatrists that don't really understand ADHD. They don't get sufficient training at university. And yeah, it's after I finished my ADCA course, I was horrified when ADCA, ADD Coaching Academy, told me that at the end of this course that we would know 95%, sorry, more than 95% of psychiatrists in terms of ADHD. That was absolutely horrifying for me. But with all the people that come to me for coaching, or just even wanting to know whether they might have ADHD, the stories I hear when they go to see their GPs, even their psychiatrists, when they try to get assessed by some psychiatrists, again, horrifying. So it really is a minefield out there. It is difficult to navigate this plane. It's really not easy territory. So whatever information I can equip you with to make that easier, I will. But again, we've only got so much time, and definitely if you can come and join us in the ADHD Unlocked membership community, where we can support you, we can provide you with all the education that you'll need, because there's a lot to learn when you've got ADHD. There's a lot of things we've got to overcome, and it's not easy to do it on your own. So the next part here is looking through the ADHD lens. So once you understand ADHD, you get diagnosed with it, perhaps you try ADHD medication. So that's all well and good, and you'll be able to manage your challenges better. Obviously, ADHD medication really helps you with focus and engagement. I have to tell you that I remember having my first proper conversation with my eldest daughter. She was already medicated for ADHD when she was 5 years old. She's now nearly 12, and I got medicated as well. And I just remember that conversation, that first conversation we had, because of just how different it was, that I was actually properly listening. I was able to engage. She was able to focus and listen to what I said. It was really, I just remember that moment. I was so happy, because the thing is, untreated ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD in that family context, you can really lose hope. It can be like a desolate wasteland, toxic environment. I remember some nights where, yeah, I would cry. I would feel desperate, lonely, isolated, that there was no hope. It was such a battle. And I know, talking from a lot of my clients, parents with ADHD, they feel the same way. And the thing is, I'm on the other side. I'm not saying it's perfect, because, it is a challenge still, but God, compared to the way it was before we knew about ADHD, before we each got assessed and each got support, before we knew about that, we didn't have a hope, right? We didn't have a hope. And I wonder whether this resonates with you parents out there, in that, I mean, you can't parent a child with ADHD in the neurotypical way. So things like timeout, just stay in that, stay in that corner. Well, if your child's got ADHD and they're hyperactive, impulsive type, and quite severely, well, we're just setting themselves up. You're setting them up to fail. And then comes more kind of criticism and punishment. Without that lens, without understanding your ADHD and your child's ADHD, you're setting yourself up for more failure, more pain, more suffering. And unfortunately, it's not just suffering within the family and in that moment, but real damage can be done to self-esteem, particularly the child's. And, we want to avoid that. The earlier you can understand and treat the ADHD in the family, the better. Definitely. I mean, I think they should be, teaching this to, is it antenatal groups? I mean, so many women get diagnosed with postnatal depression, for instance, as opposed to ADHD. And I think again, more ADHD awareness is needed. So I, for one, I was diagnosed with postnatal depression after my third child. But, to my mind, I was thinking, well, actually, I think anyone with 3 kids, 3 and under, would be feeling pretty depressed right now. And for me, I knew that I just kind of needed to get out of the situation, that the situation, was very overwhelming, because a lot of ADHDs as well tend to be very noise sensitive, which isn't great for parenting young children, is it? But so much, executive function challenges. Usually a lot of adults with ADHD get diagnosed after they have children, just because they may have been able to cope up until having children, right? But then when the children arrive, it's just too much. It just tips the scale, and it becomes pretty evident pretty quickly that there is something not quite right, something more to investigate, particularly when your child's hanging literally from the ceiling, or climbing crazy heights, because that's what a lot of the hyperactive children with ADHD do as well. get themselves into dangerous situations, and then you're finding yourself having to run after them, and then maybe causing another dangerous situation. It's really, really difficult. So very, very important to understand ADHD and use that ADHD lens when you're, talking to your child, when you're interacting with them, other members of the family with ADHD, to have the lens. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then finally, putting the oxygen mask on first. So what is really difficult with a lot of webinars and things on parenting with ADHD? Sure, children with ADHD, like all children, they need attention. I mean, one of the main strategies for ADHD is called the body double strategy, right? So body double, that obviously means someone there, someone with you, maybe not holding your hand per se, but at least there, and they're listening and they're supporting you. ADHDs need that. Now, when you're a child with ADHD with a parent with ADHD, particularly a parent with ADHD that's undiagnosed, untreated, it's very difficult sometimes, particularly if the parent isn't authentically interested in like playing, tea parties and, the kind of kiddie type of thing, which a lot of ADHDs aren't kind of authentically interested in the act of just kind of, parenting activities and toys. And there are some that love that kind of stuff, but others, very much the workaholics, need to be productive, need to get things done, otherwise they'll ruminate, feel depressed. So sometimes having to engage with their child and kind of wait for them to finish their story that they've told for the 8th time that day can be so difficult and very, very draining. And yeah, that takes a lot of energy. Okay, so if you're a parent with ADHD, you've got to put the oxygen mask on first. Yeah. And this guilt and shame that us parents feel for, we often feel like we're not good enough parents because we do get distracted. We do find it difficult to focus, and we can be quite impatient. We have a lot of anxiety around the things that we haven't done that we need to catch up on. Because you've got to remember us parents with ADHD are battling our own ADHD challenges and our own anxiety around all of those things. And then our executive function as well, having to make up for those skills. So we need extra time to plan. That overwhelm is very real. And then when a child wants to and needs attention, rightly so, there ain't nothing left in the tank. And when you've got nothing in the tank, there's nothing to give. There's nothing to give to that child. And that just, again, you can see, right? There's more guilt and shame. You're going to feel more, I'm failing at everything. The child's obviously not getting what they need. If you're in a marriage, if you're married to someone with ADHD, you won't know perhaps, and you don't understand why they're not engaging with the child. And so everything's on you, but it's so hard. Yeah, there's a lot of resentment. Builds. And as you'll see, ADHD if you've got ADHD as an adult, you're twice as likely, your marriage is twice as likely to end up in divorce than your neurotypical peers. And there are many, many good reasons for that. Not to mention that ADHDs tend to marry each other. So yeah, a lot of competition, but not in the good way that ADHD is used to motivate themselves. So let's get ADHD educated, guys. Really, really important. October ADHD Awareness Month. Let's raise that ADHD awareness and education. So like I was saying before, very much two sides of the coin. We have some really strong ADHD strengths and really want to emphasize that here. Okay. In the right situations, the right circumstances, ADHD can be a gift, right? We've got Olympians like Michael Phelps, Simone Biles. You've got very successful entrepreneurs. They think that Winston Churchill probably had ADHD, Albert Einstein, right? ADHD very much lends itself to creativity, to innovation, to problem solving, right? We can work around the clock. We can work hard. We can kind of run circles around our neurotypical counterparts when we're interested in something. Particularly when people believe in us. We want to do well. We're people pleasers, right? So that recognition responsive euphoria works a treat, yeah? You've got to remember that with your kids as well. Really, really important. Recognition, Yeah. Recognizing what they do well, putting them in situations where they're going to succeed, celebrating, right, their successes. The more positivity you can give them, right, the more that they will basically behave, do the right thing. Because ADHD is, it might not always appear so, the naughty children in the classroom, some of the swearing, some of the naughty acts. The thing is, ADHD is more, I would say, than the neurotypical counterparts want to please you, right? Really important to know this. Your child with ADHD wants to please you. They may not say that, they may say they hate you, but actually, more than anything, they want to please you. They want your approval. Okay. Now, if you have denied that to them, if they feel that they're never going to get it anyway, that's when the trouble starts, basically, because they then think, well, whatever, what's the point? Now, as soon as an ADHD starts saying, what's the point? You're in trouble, okay? Because ADHDers only do things when there is a point, right? There's got to be an outcome, a positive outcome. They've got to be interested in the outcome. It's got to be meaningful. There's got to be a point. So don't lose hope in your child with ADHD, okay? Hold the vision of them for them when they've lost it, when at times you will definitely not see that vision of their kind of potential and their kind of higher self, their talents, their gifts, their big heart. We often don't see that. But as parent, and I know it's really hard, and I get it, being a parent with ADHD, having to fight our own emotional dysregulation, right? Noise sensitivities, we get triggered really easily. But, and we'll talk about how we can do this, is to keep that vision of your child and to remind your child of who they really are, distinguishing between the ADHD brain, okay, and them, who they are, what they want, their personality. So important. Your child needs that. Your child really needs you to truly see them. Okay, so if you can keep that going, keep that connection with them, okay, you're going to get through this time. You get through it, but obviously you will need some support, which again we will talk about. So just very quickly here, because I'm hoping that you guys do know a bit about ADHD, but as we said, disorder or superpower, can it be both? Definitely, because ADHD is situationally variable, which we'll come to. It's a lifelong neurobiological condition. So for a while there, it was believed that only children had ADHD. So it's not been a very long time that they've known that adults have ADHD. Now, most children don't grow out of their ADHD. So if you had ADHD as a child, then you will most probably have it as an adult. And I don't know, from everyone I've seen, no one's grown out of their ADHD. It just appears differently. Obviously, the brain develops, you get different opportunities, different people that come into your life and maybe believe in you and champion you. And you put yourself in the right situation after you finish school into a job where you can use all your strengths and not have to deal with all the weaknesses. It's it can it can look different depending on the situation and the support that you've had. So ADHD assessment, this is where it gets difficult, particularly for the adults. It's based on the DSM-5, and there's three categories of ADHD: predominantly inattentive, predominantly hyperactive, and or impulsive and combined type. Now, when you look at the DSM-5 and you look at the criteria under these to fall under one of these categories, it's all very much based on children, which is a bit of a problem when it comes to obviously psychiatrists having to diagnose adults with ADHD, because unless you haven't grown up and you're still hanging from the rafters, sometimes you'll get a psychiatrist that will just be looking at the DSM-5, maybe not really understanding adult ADHD, and will say, I don't see ADHD here. And it happens a lot. So again, stressing the importance, please see, if you want to get an assessment, make sure you get it from someone that's informed. And look, feel free to message me, feel free to reach out to me, join us in the ADHD Unlocked membership community. And I can definitely point you in the right direction in terms of psychiatrists that know their stuff. So I partner with quite a few. When it comes to my clients, it works really well to obviously have that joined up approach. And yeah, so it's great. We kind of educate each other. And yeah, so do reach out to me if you need signposting. Now, I definitely much prefer the more functional definition that Dr. William Dodson in the US has come up with, based on his experience of actually, treating people, adults with ADHD. And as we've already touched upon, he emphasizes that ADHD is situationally variable, right? In different situations, our strength, one strength can be a weakness, another situation, that weakness can be a strength. So for instance, children in school, okay, where in school, in the classroom, they've got to sit down. Now the child, a lot of us ADHDers, we're verbal processors, and actually children get in trouble at school for talking when actually they're probably trying to get interested in what the teacher is trying to tell them, because just sitting there passively, having to listen to the teacher just talking with no kind of visual, stimulus, no kind of movement opportunities, perhaps even the topic itself is just not very interesting. The child will kind of maybe start talking or checking in with a friend, or just to try and keep the brain engaged, but they get in trouble. Now that same child, as they grow up, the child grows up, and put them in a different situation, a job where perhaps the child gets to talk. Perhaps it's sales, perhaps they become, and often do become, a really, really strong salesperson because they love to talk. That's when they feel they're people. That's when they feel the most engaged, and when they're helping people. So it's very situational. And that's why it's so important for us ADHDers, firstly, to know we've got ADHD, to treat our ADHD, and then to know what our strengths are, to make sure that we're putting ourselves, and then obviously our children, in situations where we can use our strengths. So it's that kind of purposeful action. Now, the other big thing, interest-based nervous system. This is a really important. So Dr. Ed Hallowell talks about an analogy for the ADHD brain: Ferrari brain, bicycle brakes. And the fuel for that Ferrari is authentic interest, right? So the car cannot run without the fuel. The ADHD brain cannot run without authentic interest. So this is where often a lot of conflicts between parents and children arise when they see their child have no problem concentrating on their video games, right, for hours on end. And yet when it comes to maybe homework, doing a chore, just even having a conversation, they're just not listening. And so it's really confusing, understandably, for the parent to see how hyper-focused their child can be, how committed, right, they can be, albeit to a video game, much to their disappointment and dismay. But it's confusing, right? I mean, obviously the child can concentrate, can sustain attention. But the thing is, if you don't know it's ADHD, if you don't know about the interest-based nervous system versus the importance-based nervous system, which we all kind of operate on when it comes to planning and prioritizing, right? There's going to be a lot of conflict, and a lot of disappointment on both sides, a lot of anger, resentment, a lot of resentment. I mean, we've been in lockdown, kind of tier 2 lockdown now. Now more than ever, guys, you want to understand what is going on. Understand your ADHD, understand your child's ADHD, understand where the behavior is coming from, and more importantly, what can be done about it, right? So interest-based nervous system is a really important one to remember and factor in. So do find out what your children are authentically interested in, and then literally frame anything, like, for instance, like homework, right? Trying to get them to understand a concept, frame it in their interest. If it's like football, if it's trolls, LOL dolls, get the LOL dolls out, right? That will, activate their reticular activation system. That will get their attention. You need to get their attention. So very much find out what they're interested in. Emotional management, another big issue with ADHD that's not in the DSM-5 is emotional dysregulation. Us ADHDers tend to go from 0 to 100 in an instant. So it's not that, I mean, neurotypicals, everyone can be emotionally dysregulated. It's more so the frequency and severity of the emotional dysregulation. So that's obviously the anger, flash anger we can have from nowhere as well, because ADHD is an invisible disability. So often, all these things that trigger us can kind of build up, and then it can seem from out of nowhere we explode. And no one has seen, and sometimes the ADHD themselves don't realize that maybe, something's too tight. Someone yesterday said something that really upset them and still on their mind. And, maybe it's a bit hot. It's gone hot all of a sudden. And then just one more thing, boom, bam. Very common. But, everyone around the ADHD is like, what the hell is going on? What has happened? And then when the ADHD doesn't know what's going on, they can't explain it, right? And you really, again, going back to really understanding ADHD, knowing what's going on with you so you can explain it. You can explain it, right, to yourself, firstly, so you can then explain it to others, right? Because no one can do anything. You can't do anything about these issues without knowing what they are. You can't ask for help if you don't know what to ask for. So again, ADHD education is vital. And again, come and join ADHD Unlocked membership community. We've covered 17 topics around ADHD. Okay, 17 topics. It's literally where we've got a deal for $139.50 for the year. Okay, it's amazing deal, and you need the education, right? And we keep things in sight, in mind, accessible. We hold your focus. There's the group there for any questions you've got, support. Can't emphasize how important education is. Now, the last one, rejection sensitive dysphoria. This is another extremely important. If there's anything you're going to walk away with from this webinar, if you can remember this RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. Dysphoria means physical pain. And ADHDers, we suffer from, I think they said about 95% of ADHDers suffer from rejection sensitive dysphoria. So obviously sensitive to rejection, but to a very high crippling extent sometimes. And it'll differ from ADHD to ADHDer. Some ADHDers, very, very RSD, very rejection sensitive. And it's not just actual rejection, it's the perception of rejection, right? So there might be some defensive members of your family. You might be really defensive. Maybe you don't even see it, which can often be the case as well. But maybe your partner, your spouse, accuses you of being very defensive. Yeah, you might want to look into rejection sensitive dysphoria. And we've done a whole week on rejection sensitive dysphoria in ADHD Unlocked membership. So again, if you want to know more about it, please do join up, and I'll provide details at the end. So looking at the time here, I've got about around just under 15 minutes. So ADHD is the most common neurodevelopmental disorders of childhood. Most people don't outgrow their ADHD. Now, approximately 41 to 55% of families with at least one child diagnosed with ADHD have at least one parent with the disorder. It's highly genetic. It really is. I mean, the kids that I coach, their parents have got ADHD, all of them that I've seen. Now, obviously, it's a sample. I couldn't even tell you the numbers because I'm terrible with figures, but it is very genetic. I think I read somewhere, Adka said that and I probably should, maybe I shouldn't say it if I don't get this one right, but it was something like if the mother's got ADHD or if the child's got ADHD, something about 24 times, the mother's got 24 times more likely to have it or something like that. I will get the actual statistic on that one from ADCA, my ADCA materials, but it's crazy. I think it's 5 times more likely when it's the father, something like that. But I was astounded by that. Now, about 85% of adults with ADHD are unaware of they're on ADHD and go undiagnosed and untreated. 85%, huge, right? Okay, so you could be part of that ADHD percentage, that 85% of adults. And if you are, hopefully now you're understanding, you're seeing why you're struggling so much trying to parent. Because, when you don't know, don't know it's ADHD. You don't understand your children's ADHD. How can you address it? How can you help? So let's get educated. Now, we'll run through these really quickly, but adults with ADHD, some of the outcomes of undiagnosed and untreated ADHD, definitely unemployment, okay, separation, divorce, like we discussed, addiction, abusing substances, okay, the gambling problems, alcohol abuse. Now, going to have 1 to 4 coexisting conditions, like what we discussed earlier. Often ADHD doesn't travel alone. I see a lot of ADHD and autism together, and that kind of presents in a little bit of kind of rigidity, which often in marriages, a spouse won't understand why their partner is being so rigid. Out of nowhere, social anxiety, having things in a particular order and doing things in a particular way. And, if you don't know what's going on, again, name entertainment, if you don't know what's going on, you just see that partner as being obstructive, annoying, frustrating, precious. Get over it, you might say. Same applies with your kids, okay? Kids with ADHD that might have autism as well. And yeah, would be very interested to see how much of this might resonate. Again, if your child's got autism, and or ADHD or very much, remember, this is a brain wiring. This is neurobiological. It's not a matter of won't, it's a matter of can't. And that lens, that approach makes the world of difference, changes everything. So it's so important. Highly likely to engage in thrill-seeking behavior. So you can see that the kind of adults with ADHD don't exactly have the characteristics, right, of the traditional good parent. What a child needs, right? What children need: consistency, stability, right? That kind of like solid upbringing, something that they can trust, parents they can trust and rely on. So unfortunately, having ADHD, it can be very disruptive. It can be very disruptive, very emotionally dysregulating for everyone. We have trouble following through, right? We have the best intentions. Often we desperately want to be the best we can be and be the best parents we can be to our children. But so often we don't quite make the grade. And when you don't know it's your ADHD, you're going to be beating yourself up pretty badly. And that's not going to do anyone any good. And it doesn't have to be this way. So again, emphasizing, get educated, get support. So this is what it looks like. I mean, probably on a good day. But yeah, it can be chaos. Parents fighting. The child just, I can't, obviously distressed, don't want to hear it. Got one parent up the top, she's just checked out, disengaged. It's not a pretty sight, not fun for anyone. Doesn't have to be this way. Okay, so as we discussed, parenting children with ADHD when you have ADHD, right? It's very challenging. Now, when you know you've got ADHD, okay, you can be a little bit more compassionate with yourself. And we're not talking excuses here, okay? We're not talking excuses. We're talking explanation versus excuses, right? Okay, the last thing that ADHDs want to do is have an excuse. We're hard on ourselves. We want level playing field, right? We don't want to get out, scot-free, take the, get out of jail free card. That's not us at all. So just wanted to make that very clear too. It's not about making excuses. It's about understanding the context, having a correct interpretation of what's going on and why you're struggling, and having compassion for yourself. Because we do have difficulty being present and engaged. We're inconsistent, so difficult. I mean, it's hard enough creating routines for yourself when you've got ADHD, let alone for the family. Often maybe you get so triggered by the noise that you just, maybe just need them to watch TV if you need to work, or your tank is so low that you're going to absolutely lose it if the children start kind of having go at each other and doing their crazy dances, and that you just kind of maybe just that extra, give them an extra 10, 15 minutes, right? Push that routine out just for the sake of your own mental health. So it can be very difficult to establish routines and maintain them, like a follow through. So you probably heard maybe from your children, they might double check that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Sure, do you promise? Right? Because they know that maybe you'll forget, right? So yeah, you've got your child like not quite trusting you, which no parent wants to feel that. You want your child to feel safe, that they can trust you. So that's really difficult. That's why it's really important that both parent and both the children and parents understand ADHD and have that lens. Okay, keeping your cool in the face of challenging behaviors. Yeah, really difficult because of that anger that flash anger some of us can have, right? Impatience, frustration, exhaustion, feeling helpless, guilt, shame, and self-blame. I'm sure these would resonate with a lot of you parents with ADHD. I mean, even if you don't have ADHD, you're going to have these issues probably because your children with ADHD will probably cause ADHD-like kind of symptoms, right? Because they're so overwhelming. It's hard to think. Like you can't think straight often amongst kids with ADHD. So you add your own ADHD brain to that, right? Overwhelmed with all the noise, all the ideas, all the anxiety about the things that you need to do and get done. And then you've got your children on top of that. It's hard, guys. And the sooner that we understand and accept that, and have some compassion, get some support, the better off, everyone will be. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for your kids. Because often, yeah, we're not very good at self-care, taking care of ourselves and prioritizing ourselves. But so if you can't do it for you, do it for your kids, do it for the family, yeah, to prioritize getting educated. I thought this was really important. Just have a read of that. Family members can severely exacerbate the difficulties of someone with ADHD if they do not adequately understand the true nature of the disorder, and if they tend to punish that individual with harsh and repeated criticism based on the erroneous assumption that ADHD impairments can be overcome simply by willpower. Very true. And this is why it is so important that you've got the right lens. Okay. So some really helpful ADKAR identifiers that we learned when I was training to be a coach: brain versus mind, which we touched on, just distinguishing between the ADHD brain and the will, the mind of the child and the parent. So this applies to both parent and child, now versus not now. ADHD is a time blind, right? Adults and children, a lot of us, we very much kind of can only see now. That it sometimes appears your children might be lying, but because they are so much in the now, it's kind of like anything's possible. And it doesn't feel like a lie to them. So yeah, it's definitely, we do obviously discuss this in ADHD Unlocked, these kind of traits. So really important to get across these. Won't versus can't. We talked about this too. Very important to know, to be able to know that this is not something that is easily overcome, these ADHD challenges. Your child wants to do the right thing. As an adult, as a parent, you want to be a good parent, but you got hyper focused on your work when your child maybe your child needed help with the homework, or maybe oops, you forgot that project of your child's was due on that day, and night before child tells you, oh, I need my project, and yeah, okay, it's I think it's actually helpful when the parent has ADHD as well as the child, right? Definitely, personally, I find it really helpful because we understand each other. So particularly my oldest daughter and I, the relationship that we've got, we truly see each other, and we both know we're both doing our best. We've developed this compassion, which is just, I'm really grateful for. And we have a fantastic relationship. Obviously, it's rocky and turbulent at times, as will happen with ADHD, but we can communicate, right? We can communicate, and we truly see each other, and we can always anchor to that in times of of turbulence. And so, yeah, developing that kind of special relationship, which you can do more on a one-on-one basis, so important. Reacting versus respond, which we'll talk about briefly because I know we're running out of time, but that's really important too, is that we respond, not react. Now, obviously kids, you know, again, because of their immaturity, developmental reasons, they are going to react, be more likely to react, less control over those reactions. But a parent with ADHD, very real challenges as well to not react. Now, that's where we need to try and cultivate things like mindfulness, creating space, that power of the pause, so that we can choose to respond to challenging behavior, choose to respond in a constructive way. Not easy. Takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of, practice meditating, but also, being able to walk away, breathing through the moment, particularly if you're a parent with high rejection sensitive dysphoria. So medication can help, by the way. So just the main kind of tips here, right? As a parent of children with ADHD, having ADHD myself, we love our kids, right? We want to be good parents. We want to create great memories. Okay, these kids are kids. They do grow up, as much as sometimes we're just like, oh my gosh, just can't wait till they grow up and I get my life back, or, they leave me alone. But, we're going to regret it. We're going to regret like wishing away this time. So, share a common interest, because remember, authentic interest is the fuel for the ADHD brain. So find something that you love. It could be a hobby that you already love or do, like playing the piano, baking, cycling, and do it with your child, right? Because you'll both enjoy it. You'll both have a great time. And, you will have shared that with your child. Get outside. Often, being in the house for too long, that's when the conflicts will arise. So whenever that starts to happen, or more so probably proactively, get outside early and often. There's something about being in nature. Also, it's that stimulation that ADHDers need. The four walls, can become like a prison. Have compassion, right? Again, it's again having compassion, that comes from that place of understanding ADHD, understanding yourself, understanding, that your child wants to please. We are all basically, I really believe this, that we are all doing our best. We're all doing our best with what we know, with what we have, with what's in our tank, right? I do believe that, we all, maybe not entirely everyone, but, we want to be good people. We want to do the right thing, particularly when it comes to our kids. So have compassion, get that lens on, okay? Come from that place of love and understanding. And remember, something really important to remember that's been helping me when your child is kicking off, right? All behavior is a form of communication. All behavior is a form of communication, right? There's something that's going on. Find out what that is. Again, very difficult. If your child's got ADHD, it's not medicated, doesn't understand their ADHD, you don't understand their ADHD, you're going to have a lot of tougher time. When you understand, when you're both treated, that could be through medication, therapy, coaching, you're going to have more capacity for that understanding and compassion, and you're going to have a more happy home. And finally, putting on your oxygen mask. So this is where, when you're a parent with ADHD, this is absolutely crucial, because if you don't have anything in your tank, if you're running on fumes, you're not going to be able to parent like you want to, like you should, right? So even though, we always, us ADHDers, feel so guilty kind of taking time out for ourselves, particularly us parents with ADHD. But the thing is, if we don't, we're not going to be that good parent we want to be. So by taking out that time and looking after ourselves, that's actually us being a good parent. So if you suspect you have ADHD, please get assessed, seek treatment. ADHD coaching is fantastic. It provides you with a space, to process, to come up with strategies. It's really, really helpful. Helps file your head, and you need that, right? When you've got kids at you all the time. Exercise this week in ADHD Unlocked, we're doing Move It. We're talking about the benefits of exercise. We're moving it. We were talking about it last night in our chat. We have like a Wednesday night chat where our members get together and we kind of talk about our focus topic of the week, which is kind of moving it. And people were reporting that they got motivated and have been on the move and have been a lot more productive and happier as a result, which we like to hear. Eating and sleeping well, yeah, no brainer. Mindfulness and gratitude, really important. I'm a big fan of meditation and gratitude, getting outside in nature, making time for fun and friends, okay? Because guys, as the Dalai Lama says, the purpose of life is to be happy, right? We've got to prioritize joy. Us ADHDers, we're too busy trying to stay on top of things to kind of keep our anxiety under control that we sometimes just forget, just don't have fun. And really, you don't want to get to the end of your life and look back and regret, or the end of your your kid's childhood and regret that you didn't have fun. You didn't have fun with them. You don't have those memories. Life's too short. So yeah, you want to be able to prioritize joy, which again, coaching can really help because, it gives you that kind of structure and oversight over what you've got on and what you can afford to do in terms of taking time out. And then finally, connecting with others that get it. Okay, so important. And actually we'll be running some parenting group coaching for parents in ADHD Unlocked very soon. So if you're interested in that, again, please get in touch. But in the meantime, if you join, you will stay connected. You'll be connected with others, right? That really, really understand. You don't have to spend time explaining or apologizing, for your ADHD, for maybe interrupting or being a little bit too enthusiastic, right? You don't have to bother with any of that. You can just come and be yourself, right? Be yourself and know that there are others in the same boat as you, others that get it and others that can support. We swap strategies. We're always kind of increasing each other's knowledge and helping each other, supporting each other. And we get sustenance and strength from being part of ADHD Unlocked. So community of people that get it. So please get ADHD educated with ADHD Unlocked. I think we've got the website down there, but I'll publish it. I think there might be a link, hopefully, in the event. But I'll also, make sure that we publish that. We've got our 50% offer this month. So that's £139.50 a year. I think it works out to be like £11 a month, which is really, no excuses here. We talked about excuses as an explanation, right? There ain't no excuse for this one. There really isn't. Education, get ADHD educated. It's going to make the difference. Okay. So please come and join us. Yep. 50% off, no brainer. And then finally, there was a quote here that I think I may have missed out on, but I can share it with you guys. But do reach out. If you've got any questions, please join our special Q&A that I'll be hosting in the ADHD Unlocked membership community. So do subscribe. And also, if you do subscribe, you'll have access to my tips for parents. So I've got some really, really handy tips for parents with children with ADHD. So, the best ways of going about approaching your child to get the best out of them and make sure that they thrive with their ADHD. So, yeah, thanks for staying on with me a little bit over time, but again, didn't want to cut any corners here. This is so important. You guys deserve it. You deserve to get the support you need. Your children do as well. Okay, please, hopefully you've gone away from this feeling encouraged, yeah, feeling optimistic and having hope, okay, because you should have hope. Things can be a lot better. And hopefully Michelle and I will see you in the ADHD Unlocked community soon. So yeah, do let us know, provide us with your feedback and comments. this is recorded, and I think it's going to be on the ADHD Unlocked community wider Facebook group. So please share with anyone you know that would benefit from understanding their ADHD, their children's ADHD, and how to navigate parenting with ADHD. So enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully Michelle and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.